Ladies and gentlemen of the winning team, welcome and welcome back. We are continuing in the observations and research of L. Ron Hubbard, also known as this book, Dianetics, The Evolution of a Science by L. Ron Hubbard, which was sent to me by one of you guys. And today we're going to be looking at chapter 2. This is juicy and you're going to want to stay here for this because I just kind of feel like the fact that I have a scientific background, but I'm also not somebody who likes to sit on my kind of high horse of feeling better than everybody else. It is really, really great for me to have this opportunity to help do something that I'm very passionate about, which is taking texts written by people considered to be intelligent or scientific and saying them in plain English. So I'm enjoying this quite a lot. To let you guys know what we've done so far, just to give you a quick little update, if this is your first video, you can of course check the other videos out in the playlist in the description box below. First of all, the book started out by telling us what this book is and what it isn't. That's why I said in the beginning that this is his observation and research. It says very clearly on the first page to the reader, this book is presented in its original form and is part of L. Ron Hubbard's religious literature and works, and it is not a statement of claims made by the author, publisher, or any of the Church of Scientology. It is a record of Mr. Hubbard's observations and research into life and the nature of a man. Really interesting if you guys were here for the last video where we were talking about how he talked about being a mathematician and an engineer and how, you know, the human mind being like a machine and the optimum computing machine. Really ironic, isn't it? And then we went through the meaning of Dianetics, through the soul, through the mind, and then this important note about the only reason why you would give up on this or why you would get confused is because you must have misunderstood a word, and you can never continue without understanding every word that you've read. And if you don't understand the word, you need to look for it, because that's the only reason why you get confused or give up. The only reason. And then lastly, we looked into the optimum, what is it called? The optimum computing machine, which, spoiler alert, he's saying is our brains, our minds. Today we are in Building a Science of the Mind. You guys have to check these videos out because this is just incredibly insane. So, if you were constructing this science, where would you have started? Here were all the various cults, again, very ironic for him to have any level of audacity to talking about cults, and creeds and practices of a whole world to draw upon. Here were facts to a number which makes 10 to the power of 21 binary digits look small. Okay, so let's first of all just say a few things about this binary business. I don't know if you guys can see this, but on the face on the book here, it's actually zeros and ones, which I thought was quite interesting. Also, he says, this is a wild statement, considering he's saying this is just observations and research. This is kind of a wild statement to make. Here were facts to a number which makes 10 to the 21 binary digits. 10 to the power of 21. 10 times 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 10, 21 times, right? Look small. If you were called upon to construct such a science and to come up with a workable answer, what would you have assumed, gone to observe, or computed? I love it. I honestly think, you know what, guys? Do you know one thing we can all learn from L. Ron Hubbard is just confidence. Like, this man and the actual bravado that he has to just be confidently saying these things. Like, and look how far he went with it. Like, this is your sign to just up your levels of confidence. Because this is how boldly and brazenly this guy is coming out with this stuff. So anyway, everybody and everything seemed to have a scrap of the answer. The cults of all the ages, of all the world, seem each one to contain a fragment of the truth. How do we gather and assemble the fragments? Or do we give up this nearly impossible task and begin postulating our own answers? Well, this is a story of how Dianetics was built. This, at least, was the approach made to the problem. Dianetics works, which is what Dianetics works, which is what an engineer asks, and it works all the time. What is the nature demands? What is what nature? What is what? which is what nature demands of the engineer. Okay. What he's saying here is a bit fiddly. The English is a bit fiddly. The thing about English, guys, I want to say this as well. As a scientist, scientific English and English are two different things. So I just want to point that out. That's why I was getting confused. I was like, what is this? But anyway, so it's essentially what he's saying is that there's a truth. And for this said truth, everybody and everything has a fragment of that truth. Dianetics is essentially telling us how we can get to all of that truth in one via engineering. Dianetics works, which is what an engineer asks, and it works all the time, which is what nature demands of the engineer, that it works all the time. First attempts were made to discover what school or system was workable. Freud did occasionally. Okay, let's just backtrack for a second, because I just realized something. We didn't really get into what he actually just said. This is the story of how Dianetics was built. This, at least, was the approach made to the problem. Dianetics works, which is what an engineer asks, and it works all the time, which is what nature demands of the engineer. So this thing between nature and the engineer, right? And Dianetics, which, let's remember what Dianetics is. Let's go to the definition, because this is important. Why is this so important? This is the fundamentals of everything and beyond, and the back of beyond of all of what Scientology is saying here. Listen, this is the definition in the book. This isn't in my mind, this is in the book. Dianetics means through the mind, or through the soul. From Greek dia, through, and nous, mind or soul. It is a system of coordinated axioms which resolve problems concerning human behavior and psychosomatic illnesses. It combines a workable technique and a thoroughly validated method for increasing sanity by erasing unwanted sensations and unpleasant emotions. Apparently, this is what nature is demanding of the engineer, by the way. A workable technique and thoroughly validated method for increasing sanity by erasing unwanted sensations and unpleasant emotions. Just so that we're not getting confused, right? Going with what the book tells us and following, as he said, the definitions. So, with that in mind, let's continue. First attempts were made to discover what school or system was workable. Freud did occasionally. So did Chinese. Acupuncture. So did magic healing crystals in Australia and miracle shrines in South America. Faith healing, voodoo, narcosynthesis, and understand this right here, no mystic mumbo jumbo need apply. Now, what I want you guys to hear again, which I said this in the last video, he's initially bombarding us with very scientific, mathematical, numerical ideologies to set the foundation and to get us comfortable, because the human mind is comfortable that as humans we prefer facts over feelings, we prefer facts over spirits and whatever. That's why people don't even like religions. That's why Scientology is so evil, if you ask me, because it goes by saying, hey, we're not even claiming to have anything airy-fairy spiritual, right? Where did we start? We started off, here were the facts to a number which makes 10 to the power of 21 binary digits look small. Computed, we're talking about computing, all of this. We're talking about the nature and the engineer. Then all of a sudden, once again, and this is how he's like, this is so fascinating to me, because I'm seeing how manipulation truly works and how the art of seduction works. This is the art of seduction. It's getting you in with something that if you knew what it was would say absolutely not, but drawing you in at each level by giving you enough of what you need to continue and enough of what you want to keep you wanting, while still steering you slightly off and keeping you distracted so much by that with what I'm actually doing. This is the art of seduction. Okay, because here, all of the things, notice how he says, first attempts were made to discover what school or system was workable to do this work. And he immediately goes straight to all this spiritual mysticism type stuff. Magical healing crystals in Australia, miracle shrines in South America. These are all done to spirits, by the way. All these things he's talking about are all to do with spirits. Spirits, faith healing, voodoo, narcosynthesis. And understand this right here. And then he says, notice how he says all of that, and then he immediately goes on to say as direct lie, and understand this right here, no mystic mumbo jumbo need apply. So he's essentially trying to get you to say, yes, this mystic mumbo jumbo is what I've used to come to these conclusions and is forming the basis of what I'm telling you. However, it's not the spiritual mumbo. Like, do you guys see how? And the only reason he gets away with this is because he's highly intelligent and manipulative and smart and understanding of humans. He understands the human mind. As somebody who has a similar like scientific level background understanding of humans to L. Ron Hubbard, as far as I see the world very similarly to how he sees the world, right? I see how he gets away with this because, like I said, he does it step by step. He gets you in with the logic. Then he solidifies himself. He throws all the scientific, the eloquent, the high vocabulary, the scientific vocabulary to convince you that he's an expert, which is what gains your trust. Once he's gained your trust now, he continues on to explain how actually this is quite simple and this is something anyone can understand. And then you're like, great, this is so true. This really smart man just explained this to me, made it so simple and easy. And then it's at that point when you've taken the bait, right, and you've been reeled in, then he then tells you, because this is the thing, guys, even people like this, they have to somewhat tell you what they're doing while they're doing it. They just have to tell you in a way where it goes over your head. So here, that's what he did right now. He says, first attempts were made to discover what school or system was workable. Freud did occasionally. So did Chinese acupuncture. So did magical healing crystals. Magic healing crystals. Magic. And miracle shrines in South America, faith healing, voodoo, narco-synthesis. If he'd started out by saying magic, miracles, faith healing, voodoo, and narco-synthesis are all workable systems or schools that could be used for Dianetics, would you have even read the book? If that had said it on the first place, would you have even considered Scientology if you even had that in your mind? No, you would have not, because you would have said what? You would have said it's what? The mystic mumbo jumbo that he then goes to claim. Don't worry, this isn't mystic mumbo jumbo. That's how he hits you with the checkmate. That is how he finishes the job. That is the final straw that he needs to reel you in. That part where you're like, this sounds like mystic mumbo jumbo. Don't worry, there's no mystic mumbo jumbo. And they're like, great, let's continue. Now, it's nothing wrong with humans. I really want to make it clear to you guys, when we're doing these videos, it's not about making people feel bad or feel like idiots for falling for any of this. I am in a severe place of privilege based on my own life, and I genuinely thank God with all my heart for everything that he has placed in my life, that I would be in a position where I would not fall for something like this. But it's not because I'm better than anybody. I just want to point that out there. It's not because I have some high level of intelligence. It just so happens I have so many similarities to this man, and then also I am so different to him, and I'm just working to actually look after people and actually care about humans, that I can see this for what it is. You know what I'm saying? So here we go. An engineer has to have things he can measure. Later, the word demon is used. Are you kidding me? It's chapter 2. He's now talking about demons. That's because Socrates described one so well. Dianetics' use of it, like Clerk Maxwell's, is a descriptive slang. But no wild, immeasurable guesses or opinions were wanted. When an engineer uses only those, bridges break, buildings fall, dynamos stop, and civilization goes to rack. A primary need in arriving at a dynamic principle of existence was to discover what one wanted to know about existence. One does not have to dabble long with the gods to know that they point invariably, if divinely, up a very blind alley. An engineering study of mysticism demonstrates that mysticism embraces largely what it cannot hope to state precisely. Okay, let's unpack all of that, because that was very loaded. First of all, I want to just say that he's gone out of his way to throw out all these trusted names, philosophers, trusted scientists, people, I'm trying to forget, I forgot the word that I'm looking for, right? But people who have been believed to be wise or intelligent and offer that to the world. So this is where we're seeing him talking about people like Freud, Socrates. This is why he's name dropping. He's using the classic case of the name dropping. As somebody, again, guys, who's had to hustle in life, I can tell you name dropping is a massive strategy if you want to be convincing to people in general, because as somebody who's worked in lots of different industries, as somebody who's worked in the entertainment industry, right, the first thing that people ask, who have you worked with? What celebrities have you worked with? What celebrities have you met? That kind of thing, right? Because why? Because it adds credibility. If I say I was the dance captain for Beyonce, wow, that shoots me up here. You don't actually know if I can even dance. You don't even know if my choreography is good. The simple fact that I've mentioned the fact that I've worked, and I haven't, by the way, guys, by anywhere near close to that. I just like to point out that is nowhere near close to anything that I've done, by the way. But just to give you guys an example, right? If I say something like that, that immediately puts your estimation of me, whether you've seen what I'm capable of doing or not, up there. And this is why I think sometimes this thing like name dropping is such a good tool, because people really eat that stuff up because they just automatically assume. I mean, it's good because it's like having an endorsement. When you have endorsements, normally endorsement is a good thing because it means somebody actually believes in you because they know you and whatever. And that should say something about you. But also it's a tactic that can be manipulated, as in if somebody says, oh, I know this, or I've been around this person, that person, or I'm quoting this person, that person, it adds credibility to what they're saying. So that's why I believe as soon as he starts to introduce this mysticism, spirituality stuff, he has to also in the same breath be talking about people like Freud, Socrates, Clerk Maxwell, etc. Because what is he introducing? Words like magic, miracle, voodoo, narcosynthesis, demon, right? And so then he goes on to say that his statement here, an engineering study of mysticism demonstrates that mysticism embraces largely what it cannot hope to state precisely. So he's saying that engineering in its evaluation of mysticism and scientific, and by the way, guys, I have so much to say. His use of the word mysticism as opposed to spirituality, again, is so intelligent. I'm literally nitpicking at this, and I'm going to, however long it takes and however many videos, I'm going to nitpick, because this is my scientific brain coming out. The use of the word mysticism, because in mysticism, a lot of words today have connotations. The word spirituality, spiritual, has such strong connotations in society because everybody has their own belief of what that means. One person can consider themselves spiritual because they check their horoscope and they have crystals. One person might consider the idea of God spiritual. Some other people don't necessarily see that as overly spiritual, but they see the idea of saying that they saw a ghost as spirit. Some people see ghosts as spiritual. You guys, if you've been on my channel and you watch a lot of my videos, you'll know exactly what my thoughts are on all of this, right? But so it's a very loaded word with lots of connotations. So rather than use a word that is a common word that has lots of connotations, let's use a different word, mysticism. Because you know something, guys, I think is an absolutely insanely intelligent strategy in life, is to use words that are vague. This is something that L. Ron Hubbard does. Mysticism is just, the word is as mysterious as the word itself, right? You're not really pinpointing in anything, so it doesn't upset anybody in any way. It doesn't poke anybody in any triggers. When you're trying to promote a belief system, there's certain things that if you do them in a certain way is going to point in people's wounds and is going to make your case less convincing. So for example, talking about, if he from the outright said this is a belief in God, right? People have their own connotations to the word God, their own understandings, their own perceptions of that. That is going to poke in a lot more wounds than talking about something like mysticism. Now, I'm not saying he's saying mysticism is God. I'm giving you guys an example of how the use of words, I think, is highly intentional. Art of seduction. The first proposition went off something on this order. Let us find out what we cannot consider or do not need to consider to get an answer we can use. Let's read that again. Let us find out what we cannot consider or do not need to consider to get an answer we can use. Some tests seemed to demonstrate that the exact identity of the prime mover, unmoved, was not necessary to the computation. Man has been convinced for a long time that he started this affair, so no great gain could be made in getting disputative about it. Let us then take a level immediately below prime mover unmoved. Now, let us see what else falls into the category of data of unnecessary to the computation. I'm so confused. A primary need in arriving at dynamic the first proposition went off something in this order. Let's find out what we can use. So we're trying to find out what we cannot consider or do not need to consider to get an answer we can use. This is interesting. Let me point out what I think is interesting about this, right? And I'm having to just go with what's going on in my brain because this is actually what I'm thinking, right? I'm thinking about the process of, I believe it's called like the path to freedom or something like that, which is basically like a 8 or 9 level process that people go through when you sign up to Scientology to help remove your reactive mind and basically solve everything, right? And the reason why this in particular sticks out to me is because I was watching a video by Apostle Alex and a woman he did a series with called Ashley, and they were talking about when you get to OT level 8, which OT stands for operating Thetan. Well, you guys, if you don't know what Thetan is, please check the other videos out. But basically, it's what we supposedly are, which is a spirit, by the way. But anyway, and what I noticed was that the idea is that once you go through all these levels, which very, very small people, I think Alex said in his video, it was like less than a couple hundred max people have ever got to this level in Scientology. Once you get there, you're basically told that everything that you've had to remove from yourself and all this removing is just telling you what you're not. So now that you know what you're not, you can figure out what you are. Now, bearing in mind, prior to getting to that stage, you have had to remove all these so-called Thetan past memories that you had that were stopping you being the best version of yourself and operating in freedom. And then you have to remove those memories for all the other Thetans that are attached to you, because that's one of the next levels, and then the clusters and then all this stuff. So you have to do all this work removing the memories for all this time, however long it takes you, years, decades, whatever. Removing all of that just to get to at the highest levels being told, great, so now that you know what you're, all of that was to tell you what you're not. Now we can tell you what you are. And this is what this line reminds me of, because it says, let us find out what we cannot consider or do not need to get consider to get an answer we can use. Why is that like the first even thing that we're looking at is what I'm wondering here. But I'm going to just keep reading and hope that the answer to that question is going to come. But it's reminding me the same thing, as in, like, rather than focusing on what it is that we need to do and what we are, it's like using what we don't need to get an answer. Like, I could be the one not understanding. Anyone feel free to explain in the comment section. I'm just reading with you guys. This is just an open platform. I'm just the one reading the stuff and saying stuff in the videos for us all to discuss. Some tests seem to demonstrate the exact identity of the prime mover unmoved. The prime mover unmoved, that's what I get, was not necessary to the computation. Excuse me. Man has been convinced for a long time that he started this affair. Let's just keep reading, and maybe it's going to make more sense. So no great gain could be made in getting disputative about it. Let us then take a level immediately below the prime mover unmoved. Now, let us see what else falls into the category of data unnecessary to the computation. Well, we've studied telepathy, demons, the Indian rope trick, and the human soul. So far, we have yet to find any constant in this class of data. So let us draw a line below that, our highest level of necessary information, and now call this our highest line. Oh, I get it now. So basically, okay, I understand. So what he was trying to achieve here is he's trying to achieve what is like the minimum level of where we should be starting, pretty much. And this understanding. We've gone into all of this mysticism, this stuff to do with the voodoo, the magic healing. This is why he's now mentioning the demons, the telepathy. And he's like, of all of this, there's no constants in this class of data. So we need to draw a line at our highest level of necessary information. So the part at which we can work with, which I'm assuming is the stuff that we can state precisely, because just a few lines earlier, he said, an engineering study of mysticism demonstrate that mysticism embraces largely what it cannot hope to state precisely. So although he's looking at mysticism as something that can be used for Dianetics, because it cannot be stated precisely, which obviously that's the whole thing about science, scientific observations, is they are precise, they are quantitative. It's quantitative analysis, right? You have tangible evidence and physical numbers or whatever it is that you have that you can look at. So that's what he's trying to assess. What's the highest line that we can get to with that? Okay, I'm following. What do we have left? We have the finite world, blue serge suits, Selena's Valley, the cathedral at Rhymes as a building, and several decayed empires, and a roast beef for dinner. We have left only what we can perceive with no higher level of abstraction. Now, how do we perceive, and on what with, and on what and with what? So essentially saying all we have is literally the observable universe. So the third dimension, right? I'm all up in the dimension stuff, by the way, guys. My next God versus Science video, my next big video where I'm going to like really go to town on God versus Science, is going to be about the dimensions of the universe, by the way. I'm so excited to get to that whenever we get there. But essentially what he's saying, because the way he described it, we have a finite world, blue serge suits, Selena's Valley, the cathedral Rhymes as a building, and several decayed empires, and a roast beef for dinner. He's talking about the world. He's talking about where we're at right now, the physically observable world, third dimension, right? We have left only what we can perceive. Exactly. What we can perceive is the third dimension, because going into the fourth dimension scientifically is not necessarily perceivable or we're able to see, with no higher level of abstraction. Now, how do we perceive, and on what and with what? Ensues here a lot of time spent, 1937, in computing out the brain as an electronic calculator with the probable mathematics of its operation, plus the impossibility of such a structure capable of doing such things. Let us then rule out the necessity of knowing structure and use this as an analogy only, which can become a variable in the equation if necessary. This is what I'm talking about with science. When people are like, science is so like trustable and it's so logical and it's so specific. I heard some things like this all the time studying my degree. Listen, now, how do you perceive on and with what? Ensues here a lot of time spent, 1937, in computing out the brain as an electronic calculator with the probable mathematics of its operation, plus the impossibility of such a structure capable of doing such things. Basically, that the brain itself is not capable of doing exactly what it is that we are saying that we would like for it to do. I think. Let us rule out the necessity of knowing structure and use this. So he says, let us rule out the necessity of knowing structure. So we don't need to know the structure of this thing, but instead let use it as an analogy, which can only become a variable in an equation if necessary. So this is what the scientific version of, we're going to use this as an approximation, or we're going to make an assumption. And this is what I don't think people realize happens in science. A lot of the time when we get to these crossroads of things we can't completely explain, but that are like highly important, we just find an approximation that we found from whatever we found it from, or we make some other kind of assumption. In this case, we use the different analogy. We're going to use this as an analogy. Now, what do we have? Well, we've been a little hard on demons and the human soul. According to L. Ron Hubbard, we've been a little hard on demons. And the human soul. You can't write this. You cannot make this stuff up. I could not make this stuff up. These are popular because they refuse to stand out and submit to a thorough inspection and caliper menstruation, and if they won't so cooperate, then neither will we. And so two things come from this reduction of equation factors necessary to solution. First, existence is probably finite, and second, finite factors alone answer the need of the problem. These are wild statements. We'll come back to it because I'm going to try and let him land at this point here. Probably we could be very obtuse and mathematical here, but no matter. A good workable heuristic principle, and a workable one is worth an infinity of formulas based on authority and opinions which do not work. I want to look into this word heuristic because I don't know what that means. So let's see if it's in the glossary. See, guys, see how I'm going through this just as I was distracted. So heuristic, all right, where is it? Should be here. Aha! Okay, so we have a definition for heuristic. Heuristic, spelled Heuristic, using experimentation, evaluation, or trial and error methods involving investigation and conclusion based on invariable workability. So I'm going to read that again. Using experimentation, evaluation, or trial and error methods involving investigation and conclusions based on invariable workability. So trial and error, or the fact that it actually works. So basically the same as the rest of freaking maths and science, which is you either do trial and error or you do, because the difference between, I'm not going to get into this because it's going to be long. Probably we could use very obtuse and mathematical here, but no matter. A good workable heuristic principle and a workable one is worth an infinity of formulas based on authority and opinions which do not work. So basically he's saying we need something that is tangible. We need something that can be done via trial and error, or it's involving investigation and conclusions based on invariable workability, rather than opinions that don't work. So he's essentially trying to put up, and this is what is just incredibly insane about this man, right? He's always trying to suggest that what he's saying is just trying to look at the science and so anytime that he's facing, basically what he's saying is, because just now we were looking at the limitations of the issues with the fact that we can only perceive things at the level we're at, and we have no higher level of abstraction, according to him. This I'm just reading from the book, guys, as I'm looking down. And so what he's saying here and what he's doing very craftily is consistently, whenever he's faced with a problem that is scientifically, mathematically an issue that needs to be addressed, right, such as this, using the idea that, well, there's no point looking at something that cannot be quantifiable in one way, shape, or another, because again, it's genius, because that's probably what he's also observed of humans, that when trying to convince humans, because guys, remember this, think about this. This is something to think about, and we'll leave it here because I'm not going to be able to get through all this chapter, and I don't want to overdo the videos, make them too long. So we'll do the rest of chapter 2 in a separate video. But let's leave with this, right? Think about this. If L. Ron Hubbard is smart enough to have observed all these things about people to tell you how to live better, that also means he's observed the best ways to manipulate people. Think about that, because if you observe people as a whole, that amount of knowledge and whatever you've learned is a huge deal. You have so much information you can take and use however you want. This is why I said me and him are very different. I observe the world and I notice a lot of the things he says about people as a whole, I agree with. But my thing isn't that I'm trying to discourage people. I'm trying to help people. So that's why when I notice that, like I said to you guys already, I know for a fact that when you throw things like high-level scientific vocabulary or considered intelligent vocabulary at people, or when you name drop intelligent minds or certain people, it has a certain impact on others. When you start with logic and use logic as the foundation of your argument, I know all those tactics work with people because I've seen it as my own observation, right? It's not something, and it's the reason why, I appreciate when people, especially when facing religion and religious type of stuff, say, well, this religion seems like, like he said, something like mystic mumbo jumbo or whatever it was, because where is the numbers? Where is the facts? Where is the tangible evidence observable in our 3D universe, right? And so I get that. And that's why I love it. And I still love science, because I love how science really is continuing to explain a lot of things that I know exist. You know what I'm saying? So I know that it's a manipulation tactic. And that's why I really think, you guys, if there's anything to take away from this before we continue, is just remember that the same person that can have the intelligence to understand and observe humans. Remember, the book is supposed to be a book of his observations and research. If that same person has made observations and research about humans that can help us, that also means that he's the same type of person who can make observations and research that can destroy us. And he's also the same person that can take those observations and research and use it against you. Just like how a narcissistic person works. A narcissistic person finds what the person wants, what the person they can use from the person's personality or things that they've said or things that they want to manipulate them. It's the exact same thing. And then you think that this is the answer. It's classic love bombing. It's literally classic love bombing, giving you everything that you want to have, reel you in, and then to just turn out to be a freaking psychopathic narcissist at the end of the day. Anyways, guys, if life's a game, let's play to win. I'll see you in the rest of chapter 2. If you're enjoying this, don't forget to check out the description box for the playlist. The picture of the book is in the thumbnail. That's how you know it's this playlist, it's this video's series part. Anyways, guys, God bless you all, and I'll see you in my next one. Goodbye.